Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's escalating its attacks on Gaza City and has issued orders to forcibly displace the city's entire population of nearly 1 million people. On Monday, Israeli planes dropped leaflets ordering Palestinians to head to Al-Mawasi, a coastal strip of barren land Israel's designated as a so-called humanitarian zone, despite frequent deadly attacks on the area. Israel's latest forced evacuation order comes as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu boasts of blowing up high-rise buildings across Gaza City and warns of even more deadly attacks.
All this is only an introduction, opening act to the powerful main act, which is a ground maneuver of our forces who are now assembling and organizing into Gaza City. And this is why I say to the residents of Gaza, I take this opportunity, listen carefully, you have been warned, leave now.
Israel's defense minister says his forces have leveled 30 major buildings across Gaza City and threatened to bring more down. Among the high-rises bombed to rubble is the Al Roya Tower, which housed the Palestinian Center for Human Rights. This is a displaced Palestinian mother whose family was sheltering in a tent near a Gaza high-rise that was blown up Monday.
I am afraid for my children. I am afraid for myself, and I'm afraid for those around me. The Israelis have no mercy. Whatever they say, they carry out. It's not that they are only trying to scare us or make us leave. They are actually killing us, burning us. Around 4 days ago, they burned children in a tent. And here we are, next to the towers. We live here, which means that shrapnel could have hit us.
Gaza health officials say Israeli attacks since dawn have killed at least 35 Palestinians, including children and people seeking food. Meanwhile, health officials report 6 more Palestinians died of starvation over the past 24 hours due to Israel's blockade. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces carried out violent raids Monday that killed 2 14-year-old Palestinian boys were killed by Israeli fire in the Jenin refugee camp. The stepped-up raids follow Monday's shooting attack in occupied East Jerusalem that left 6 Israelis dead and 12 others wounded. In the wake of that attack, Israel's far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich said the villages that the 2 Palestinian attackers came from should, quote, become like Rafah and Beit Hanun, a reference to cities in Gaza reduced to rubble by Israel. On Monday, Israeli forces released footage of engineers preparing to destroy the homes of the alleged gunmen, part of a policy of collective punishment often deployed by Israel against the families of Palestinians accused of crimes. In Tunisia, activists with the global Samoud Flotilla say one of their main boats preparing to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza was attacked by a drone overnight Monday. Journalist Yusuf Omar was on the deck of the ship when the apparent bombing occurred.
Guys, I was sleeping right here on this mattress, and I hear this explosion and a big ball of flames, like burning the sides of your face. And then down here, you can see exactly what has happened. It landed here. The drone, it landed here, and it just, a big explosion happened right next to our diesel tanker.
Tunisia's National Guard disputed the activist's account of the explosion, saying the fire appeared to have started in a life jacket caused by a cigarette butt or a lighter. That claim directly contradicted by surveillance video showing a trail of fire falling into the ship and exploding into flames. This is Yasmin Ajar, a member of the global Samoud Flotilla.
They have bombed a boat once again with civilians on it in Tunisian territory. This is an attack against Gaza because they don't want us there. So we need you to mobilize. Let's not stay quiet.
In Germany, 5 members of the direct action group Palestine Action Monday broke into a weapons factory operated by Elbit Systems, a major supplier to Israel's military. Video released by Palestine Action shows an activist using a crowbar to pry open a door. The activists are then seen smashing equipment and painting graffiti, denouncing Israel's assault on Gaza. Nobody was injured during the group's acts of sabotage, and people ultimately arrested all 5. Police arrested all 5 without resistance. Palestine Action later published a video by a member claiming responsibility.
My name is Leandra, and you are watching this video because last night I took action against Elbit Systems in Ulm, Germany. This criminal corporation make millions of dollars year after year, especially since 2014, out of the extermination of the indigenous people of Palestine and the occupation of their land. Most of the drones bombing the hell out of Gaza are being made by Elbit Systems. The surveillance systems of the walls that made Gaza an open-air prison and the humanitarian aid blockade possible are made by Elbit Systems.
The action by Palestine Action Germany came after British police arrested nearly 900 people Saturday at a protest in London against the UK government's ban on Palestine Action under the Terrorism Act. On Monday, the artist Banksy took credit for a mural that appeared on the Royal Courts of Justice depicting a British judge in a wig using a gavel to attack a man lying on the ground and holding a sign spattered in blood. Guards later covered the mural in black plastic. Authorities say it will be removed. Officials in Lebanon say at least 5 people were killed and 5 others wounded Monday as Israeli warplanes struck parts of the eastern Bekaa Valley. It's Israel's latest violation of a ceasefire deal signed last November. Separately, Syrian media reports Israel's Air Force bombed targets in Homs in central Syria, as well as the coastal city of Latakia and the historic city of Palmyra. Syria's foreign ministry called Israel's latest strikes a blatant infringement of Syrian sovereignty and a threat to regional stability. Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthis have claimed responsibility for a drone attack on an airport near the Israeli Red Sea city of Eilat. 2 people were injured in the attack, which follows Israeli strikes in late August that killed the Houthi prime minister and other top officials in Sana'a. In Nepal, the Prime Minister, KP Sharma Oli, has resigned amidst anti-corruption demonstrations that continue to roil Nepal. At least 19 people were killed and over 100 injured Monday as authorities cracked down on the protests, with police firing rubber-coated bullets and tear gas at protesters trying to storm the parliament in Kathmandu. Organizers dubbed the protests demonstrations by Gen Z, as young people take to the streets to condemn government corruption and a ban on social media platforms.
Every corruption in the country, from the local level to federal level, all the Nepalese citizens are fed up of corruption. Every youth are going outside the country, so we want to protect our youth and make the country's economy better. For that, we need a new youth, new power, and new politicians who are well educated to move the country forward.
Armando Gudino is director of the Los Angeles Worker Center.
By siding with the Trump administration, this court's majority has revealed itself as highly prejudicial and has further empowered authoritarianism in this country. Immigration agents are now being given the power to profile, stop, detain, and arrest people because of the color of their skin, the language they speak, or the work that they do. In doing so, they have effectively legalized racial profiling and, by extension, racial discrimination.
The Department of Homeland Security says it's begun Operation Midway Blitz, a stepped-up mass deportation campaign spearheaded by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Monday's announcement came just 2 days after President Trump declared, quote, Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War, unquote, in a social media post evoking the 1979 film Apocalypse Now and the Vietnam War. Trump also wrote, I love the smell of deportations in the morning, a reference to one of the most infamous lines in the film, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. We'll have more on Trump's threats against Chicago and Los Angeles later in the broadcast, as well as the references to Apocalypse Now with the Pulitzer Prize-winning Vietnamese-American author Viet Thanh Nguyen. A prominent nonviolent activist from Moroccan-occupied Western Sahara has been detained by federal immigration officers. Jamal Fadel was seized by masked ICE agents at Manhattan's notorious federal building at 26 Federal Plaza on August 25th after a routine immigration hearing, an arrest that was caught on video.
Stand back! Stand back! Move back! This is the freedom. I'm coming to my process immigration. What country are you from? I'm from Western Sahara.
Jamal Fadel is from the occupied city of Boujdour in Western Sahara. He's been protesting nonviolently against Morocco's occupation since he was a high school student and was threatened by Moroccan authorities so many times that he left to seek political asylum in the United States. He's currently being held by ICE at the Moshannon Valley Processing Center in Pennsylvania. His attorney expects ICE will move for an expedited removal hearing. If deported to Morocco, Fadel faces lengthy imprisonment, torture, or worse. In a speech at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. Monday, President Trump downplayed the seriousness of domestic violence while claiming crime is down after he deployed National Guard troops to the District of Columbia.
And much lesser things that take place in the home, they call crime. You know, they'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say this was a crime, see? So now I can't claim 100%. But we are a safe city.
Trump's downplaying of domestic violence at the Museum of the Bible came as the House Oversight Committee released a birthday note with a sexually suggestive drawing signed allegedly by Donald Trump to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein back in 2003. The committee had subpoenaed Epstein's estate for the birthday book and other files. Despite the note containing his signature, the White House denied the letter was from Trump, saying he, quote, did not draw this picture and he did not sign it, unquote. A second page of the birthday book featured an image of Epstein holding a large check. Democratic lawmakers said the photo showed Epstein and a longtime Mar-a-Lago member joking about selling a, quote, fully depreciated woman to Donald Trump for $22,500. This follows a request by the Justice Department to a federal judge to reject NBC News' request to unseal the names of two Epstein associates who both received wire payments from Epstein back in 2018. As part of his non-prosecution plea deal with federal prosecutors in Florida, Epstein helped ensure his associates would not be prosecuted. Meanwhile, a New York Times investigation has found that J.P. Morgan Chase spent years bankrolling Epstein and ignored red flags and suspicious activity. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast with the New York Times reporter who exposed this story. And a federal appeals court has rejected President Trump's attempt to overturn his $83.3 million verdict for defaming the writer E. Jean Carroll. In their unanimous opinion, the judges wrote, quote, the jury's duly rendered damages awards were reasonable in light of the extraordinary and egregious facts of this case, unquote. This comes as President Trump and his lawyers said that they intend to ask the Supreme Court to review the jury's $5 million verdict that he sexually abused E. Jean Carroll. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.
Part of the so-called. Alright guys, so Israel and the United States are continuing in their lawless rampage around the region, as just in the last week or so, Israel has attacked inside of 6 different countries, including in Palestine, both in Gaza and the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, where they assassinated the Prime Minister, in Tunisia just a couple days ago as they attacked one of the Gaza Aid Freedom Flotillas that was attempting to bring food aid to the Palestinians in Gaza that Israel is currently starving to death. And then finally, the 6th country, the most recent one that happened earlier this morning, is Qatar. So apparently Israel launched basically a mass assassination attempt of top Hamas officials as they were gathered to discuss a recent Trump and Israel proposal for a potential ceasefire. So here from Al Jazeera, they're reporting that Hamas is claiming that the leaders who were the targets of this assassination attempt actually survived Israel's attack on Qatar's Doha, the capital of the country. And apparently there were people who were killed in this strike, but it was 5 lower-ranked members who were killed, as well as a security officer and several others who were wounded. Now, Israel is, of course, claiming that this was a massive success, but again, Hamas is saying here that the leaders that Israel was trying to take out did manage to survive this attack. We can see a little bit of the aftermath of the impact of the strike itself on this building here, and then we can also see a video of what it looked like sort of from a different angle here with the massive plume of smoke going up. It looks like multiple different strikes, airstrikes it looks like, from above that impacted on this one building. And you can notice up here at the top that we're getting this video from the Israeli Speaker of the Knesset, who says this is a message to all of the Middle East, right? Obviously implying, which he's not wrong about, that Israel can and will bomb whoever, whatever, and whenever they want throughout the entirety of the Middle East with complete and total impunity, right? And this is just another example of that kind of behavior. Now, to break down exactly what happened here, we got this tweet from Ryan Grimm to explain some of the surrounding context of all of this. So he says, here's what just happened. Trump sent a peace deal to Hamas. Hamas met to discuss it in Doha, where the U.S. is mediating talks and has a base. I believe it's our largest military base in the Middle East. And then Israel bombed them, presumably with U.S. support. And there's really no way that Israel could have conducted this strike so close to an American military base without the U.S. being aware of it, right? They say the strike in Doha was aimed at Hamas negotiators who were gathered to discuss Trump's ceasefire offer, according to a Hamas official speaking.
So, like, any argument that Hamas could end the war at any time is out of the question. Because Israel is actively prolonging the stalling of the ceasefire negotiations.
To Al Jazeera, and much as Trump carried out fake nuclear talks with Iran in order to kill Iranian negotiators. He says this might explain why Trump's offer to Hamas was so short and scant on details. The whole point was to gather people together to discuss the peace offer to kill them, right? So this was the peace offer, I guess, that he was referencing there, that Jeremy Scahill did a write-up in drop site news of. And this was like a 100-word ceasefire proposal that the Hamas officials literally said at the time looks like it was written by the Israelis. And it looks like they were right because, again, this wasn't a real ceasefire proposal. This was something that they gave to Hamas in Qatar in order to bring their negotiators together so that they could try to assassinate them. That's what happened here. And this isn't even the first time in recent memory that Israel has conducted these kinds of assassination attempts or successful assassination attempts inside of third-party countries. Remember, it was just last year that Israel assassinated Ismail Haniyeh, a top Hamas political leader, on Iranian soil, right? So it's not the first time they've even done something like this. And as Ryan is pointing out here, it's also not the first time that they have used sort of fake diplomacy in order to conduct targeted assassinations of the people who they're supposedly negotiating with, right? Typically, if a country is engaging in good faith negotiations, they don't kill the people who they're negotiating with, right? Now, he continues down here on the IDF's statement surrounding all of this. So he says, Israel is taking credit for the attack, citing October 7th, though most or all in Doha didn't even know about October 7th until it happened. So the IDF is saying that the IDF and the ISA conducted a precise strike targeting the senior leadership of the Hamas terrorist organization. For years, these members of the Hamas leadership have led the terrorist organization's operations, are directly responsible for the brutal October 7th massacre, have been orchestrating and managing the war against Israel, and they say prior to the strike, measures were taken in order to mitigate harm to civilians, including precise munitions and additional intelligence. They say we will continue to operate with determination in order to defeat Hamas, the terrorist organization responsible for October 7th. So that's what Israel is claiming. And again, important to understand the surrounding context to this, because this is not the first time that Israel has, and the United States has for that matter, used this kind of fake diplomacy in order to sort of bait and trap the people who they're negotiating with into death traps, essentially. Now, for a sort of comical side-by-side here from Israeli media, in terms of, you know, how good faith Israel is in these negotiations, within just a matter of hours, we had Israel going from, we accept this new ceasefire proposal, that Trump was just putting forward with Steve Witkoff reportedly. And 2.5 hours later, they killed them, right? So this is how quickly this went back and forth. Again, it's sort of like a distraction to the Hamas leaders to say, you know, nothing to worry about here. Israel accepts the deal. Let's just finalize it, put pen to paper, and oops, sorry, we killed you. Now, this wasn't the only recent deal that was sort of floating around. If you guys remember, I covered on this channel just a few weeks ago that...
I mean, at least Israel is roping the United States... What am I saying? At least 2 fascist states are collaborating. What am I saying? It was almost better when the USS Liberty was just getting bombed and we were just accidentally picking up intel about Alex Jones seems to think that the USS Liberty was attacked because the listening devices on board picked up intel that Israel had committed some atrocity. And so in order to cover their tracks, Israel destroyed the reconnaissance vessel called the USS Liberty. And that's speculation. We don't know why it was bombed by Israel. But we can venture some pretty safe guesses as to why. Now it's evolved. Now we're working together with the Israelis to pretend like we're having ceasefire talks, when in reality it's just another iteration of the GHF. Instead of lining people up for aid, we're lining people up with the promise of peace. I don't see this as any different than any other instance of people being gathered under false pretenses, whether they're being displaced to another so-called safe zone or whatever. It is the dirtiest way to play war. Play war. This is war with no rules. The international law is being kicked to the side, left and right. For as far back as I can see in history.
That Hamas had accepted almost word for word. Like
when was the last time? The world collectively agreed to obey international law. It just... appeals to legality, I think, are mind-numbing at this point. Mind-numbing. Appeals to legality.
Already over 98% of the deal.
A 100-word ceasefire proposal is crazy, though. Pretty short and sweet.
That was written by Witkoff and Ron Dermer, essentially an Israel and United States deal. Hamas said, okay, we'll basically accept that almost word for word, bar for bar, almost sort of like to test whether or not Israel would accept their own ceasefire deal that they were proposing. And Israel basically ignored them, didn't give a response to that. And then a few days later, after Hamas had accepted the deal, or said that they were going to accept the deal, Witkoff comes out and says, no, never mind, that deal's off the table, and we're going to offer something, you know, more intense down the line. And it looks like that's exactly what this proposal was, which
We'll call these the Witkoff massacres, because he has been orchestrating the massacres with the GHF, these fake ceasefire talks. People are getting massacred because of this man.
Which again was then used to try to assassinate the Hamas negotiators. Now,
The Samud Flotilla is leading the world by example. It's doing what all these other countries ought to be doing, which is breaking the siege, going around Israel. We should not even acknowledge Israel as a reliable actor in any sense of the word. They are a rogue terrorist state. Full stop. I mean, you could argue that the United States is a terrorist state. Okay. We need to be stopped too. Like, the question is, will the United States intervene in the Samud Flotilla? Or will the United States continue to hide their hand behind Israel? Like the big bad cowards that the United States are.
continuing on here, seems like potentially, depending on how you want to read into this, that Qatar and their leadership is not too happy about this. So here from Dropsite News.
Oh, they didn't like that?
Price for crossing them, and it's unlikely to pay a price anytime soon.
I've got to just interrupt because we have this news conference taking place in the Ministry of Finance. We can get over and...
Womp fucking womp, you guys. Hamas leaders survive.
have a listen to what the foreign minister is at the moment saying, or is...
They're not even good at the terrorism that they do, you know? You guys have all the military might on the face of the planet. You still can't get them. It's pathetic.
Spokesman, and here you go, Majid.
You told them where to go. You knew where they were gonna be. Fucking pathetic.
Al-Ansari there.
Seen as terrorism. This has targeted the headquarters or the political office of Hamas during the negotiations.
And then how pathetic is America gonna feel when the Samud Flotilla makes landfall on the coast of Gaza? And those volunteers start doing the humanitarian work that the United States claims that they cannot do. The United States could turn Tel Aviv into a West Bank type lockdown situation tomorrow. Military intervention is just being not wielded. This is the one time that I would probably be in favor of military intervention. If there's one state that needs to be invaded for regime change, is Israel.
The security forces and civil defense went directly under the directives of His Highness the Emir to address the situation that happened, the attack that took place on 3:46 p.m. and taking care of all those who died or were injured during this attack. We also took all the measures in order to contain this situation. In this regard, we present and express our...
Also, even if you did murder every single target, their leadership will replenish. It's just what they do. Like, there never seems to be a shortage of guys. I don't understand, but What did the murder of Qasem Soleimani get us at all? Except a galvanized state of Iran.
Sincere condolences to the martyr Saad al-Dusri, who died during his while he was carrying out his duties in this event. We also pray that all those who died or has been killed will be in the paradise. The state of Qatar is committed to act in a decisive way with anything that would target its territories, and will reserve the right to retaliate, and will take all the needed measures to retaliate. And under the directives of His Highness the Emir, the security of the citizens and the residents is our top priority. And based on that, as of tomorrow,
That was the moment an incendiary device struck one of the ships in the Sumud Flotilla bound for Gaza. The explosion you saw there occurred around 11:30 p.m. local time last night, striking the family ship. That's the boat carrying Greta Thunberg, as well as her own Kieran Andreo, though neither were on board during what appears to be a deliberate attack. Now, we've come to that conclusion by forensically examining the footage of the attack, and our conclusion directly contradicts the Tunisian authorities, with Interior Ministry over there saying that claims of a drone strike, quote, have no basis in truth. That is the sovereign government of the country where this happened. The Coast Guard has also claimed the fire may have been caused by a cigarette being thrown into a pile of life jackets. We can say here at Novara Media with utter confidence that was not the case. This footage shot from a nearby boat shows the moment a flaming object hits the boat in question.
Oh my God. I don't mean to laugh. It's just such a fucking lie to call that a cigarette. Look at that. It's one hell of a cigarette.
An explosion. Moment was not the case. This footage shot from a nearby boat shows the moment a flaming object hits the boat in question, causing an explosion. Seen from this angle, shot from aboard the family boat, the explosion is more moderate, giving rise to a fire. So you can see that the officials in Tunisia aren't quite right. If we slow down and brighten the original footage...
We can stop with the passive language not quite right. They're lying. They're lying. Oh, you didn't quite get this detail about prolonging the genocide, right? They're lying, and they're complicit, and they're doing propaganda. Call it for what it is.
You can clearly see three important things. First, the incendiary object drops directly down from a height above the boat. Second, it ignites mid-air. And third, you can see what appears to be...
Yeah, I like Novara Media. They're fine. Novara Media is fine. It's just, I'm so done with the passive voice of so many reporters. I can't do it anymore. Like, Palestinians dying. No Palestinians have been dying. They've all been murdered. Murdered. With intent. Dying of malnourishment. Starved to death. Starved to death. Not dying of malnourishment. Just think about the crimes that the Nazis committed and how black and white that is now. And then ask yourself how it's different now.
Accelerant already ablaze, flying away from the object in its wake. Our theory here at Novara Media is that the incendiary object was dropped from a drone and that it was ignited remotely mid-air while carrying its own accelerant supply. On impact, that accelerant spread, causing the blaze. Essentially, a sophisticated Molotov cocktail rigged with an ignition switch. And if we focus in on the first few moments of the footage, you can clearly see that when it ignites, a smaller object is thrown away from the main object. That appears to be something like an ignition switch. The damage on board the ship also appears consistent with an accelerant-fueled fire rather than with a more traditional drone strike using a missile or other projectile. This is the aftermath of the explosion. As you can see, there is charring and burn marks on the deck and hull, but no breach of the material. There is also smoke damage to the exteriors of cabins. That might have been a stroke of luck, with the incendiary device appearing to have landed in or near a pile of the ship's life jackets. Those are flame-resistant objects, remember, that may have helped to stop the fire spreading further. If the aim of the attack was to prevent the ship from sailing any further or to injure its passengers and crew, it failed. Novara Media understands there has been no structural damage to the ship. If the aim, however, was to have some kind of effect on morale, it may have succeeded, with some passengers clearly panicked by the explosion. Yusuf Omar, who was aboard the ship at the time, live-streamed his reaction.
Our vessel is on fire. We have been hit by what appears to be a drone. We are on the flotilla off the coast of Tunis. We just got hit. The vessel is on fire. Our vessel is on fire. We've been hit by what appears to be a drone. We've been hit by what appears to be a drone. We are on the flotilla vessel off the...
Bro, this is not what you do in an emergency situation. Can we all just accept that? That it's... I mean, absolutely document yourself and what's going on, but you are causing a panic. You are yelling and repeating the issue without telling people where to go, what to avoid. He's scared. You can clearly hear in his voice. His voice is breaking and stuff. It's probably extremely scary. Everybody was probably on edge leading up to this point to an enormous degree. But this is not how you react in an emergency. I've had a little bit of lifeguard training. I'm not like an EMT or whatever, but I feel like most people would say, if there's a fire, don't run around with your arms flailing and screaming. It's the worst thing you can do.
Coast of Tunis. We are on the flotilla vessel off the coast of Tunis. We've been hit. Are we abandoning ship?
I don't know. Putting this on.
It was a massive explosion. A massive explosion. Just meters away.
Early reports from the boat also suggested that the object nearly struck a fuel tank, but Novara Media understands that is not the case. Earlier today, Novara Media's Charlotte England spoke to family passenger Miguel Duarte in Tunis, where she asked him to give his account of the explosion.
My name is Miguel Duarte. I'm a Portuguese citizen. I'm a civil...
So are they saying that it did come close to the diesel reserves, or it did not?
Sea rescuer in the Mediterranean Sea, and I'm a scholar in the university in Lisbon. Last night, I was doing a night shift on one of the ships that compose the global Samud flotilla that is on its way to Gaza right now. Close to midnight, I was standing on the aft deck, so the back part of the ship, and I heard a noise that was clearly a drone approaching the ship. I couldn't see it because there was a cover on the deck, so I got out of that cover, looked up, and saw, sure enough, a drone that was hovering about 3 or 4 meters above my head. Called someone, that someone came as well, saw the drone. We stood there under the drone for a few seconds, and then the drone moved slowly until it was hovering just over the forward deck. Stood there for a few seconds and then dropped what was obviously a bomb of some kind that triggered a big fire. There were flames everywhere in the forward deck, even going beyond the railing of the ship. So a big explosion with a big flash. Obviously that triggered a fire, and we got the fire extinguishers from everywhere in the ship and fought the fire. Fortunately, within a few minutes, we were able to control it and to put it out with superficial damage to the ship, and fortunately no serious injuries on the crew. So we were 6 people in the crew at that point, which is also good because we're usually above 20 on that ship. Fortunately, everybody was safe.
What did the drone look like? Like, was it big for a drone?
I'm no specialist in drones, so I don't know how. I don't know what's a normal sized drone, but it was a drone like about this size, square, probably with some helices. I don't know if that's the word in English. Making a lot of noise in the air, and certainly carrying something that it then dropped on our deck. Pretty difficult to see as well because it was very dark and it had no lights. But it came so close to us that we could very, very clearly see that it's one of those drones that are like an X-shaped, carrying this something that we realized that was a bomb.
And presumably there's no way to see where it came from.
Absolutely no way. I mean, I realized it was approaching when it was already almost over above the aft deck, and when it dropped the bomb, the explosion was so quick to take over a big portion of the ship that I obviously never even looked at the drone again. So I think it went, in the direction of the bow of the ship, but I can't be certain. So we have no idea where it came from or where it's going, but. There are very little doubts about who sent it.
And why was the fire so big? Like, was there flammable stuff that it hit, or was it just a lot of fire that came out of the sky?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of fire coming out of the sky for sure. The explosive was the flames that were triggered by the explosive were big. However, it landed on a pile of life jackets, and those life jackets are made of plastic and styrofoam, and also that is quite flammable. So all of this smoke coming out of burnt plastic kind of took over the ship, and I think that increased the danger of the fumes and also the flames. So at some point, a big part of the ship was not accessible because of that.
And what happened in the kind of 1 or 2 hours afterwards?
Then almost immediately after we put out the fire, we had the police and the Coast Guard. The police and the Coast Guard coming over and taking. They inspected the ship, inspected the burning, the site of the burning. Eventually, the organizers of the Global Samud Flotilla also joined us and.
Okay, so it seems like they docked and involved the Tunisian authorities.
We decided to replace the crew that was there. The crew that fought the fire went to land, and it was replaced by some people who went there to take over the shifts.
How much did the Coast Guard investigate and ask questions?
That is not. I can't really say because they asked us what had happened. We answered to the best of our knowledge. They inspected the.
Yeah, you can intimidate them, but that's just one vessel. Their crew has already been replaced, and they are already back on track. Fuck Israel.
Floor, but then we left, and the Coast Guard and the police were still there. The authorities were still there, and they were about to start to conduct their more detailed search or investigation there. So I don't know the results yet.
But they've come back and said that they think a cigarette started it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, there's absolutely zero doubt in my mind that what triggered this explosion was a drone carrying some sort of explosive that was dropped on the forward part of the deck. I'm 100% sure of this. And yeah, maybe we would be in a difficult situation if it would be only my word, but there's video evidence, right? One of the ships had a camera pointed to the ship where I was, and
he's like, "What the fuck you asking me about a cigarette for? It's on video."
Although it was night, you can clearly see a bomb being dropped out of somewhere in the sky and hitting the deck.
And as far as you're aware, will...
Yep. And there have been a few questions in the chat. Is that a boat that had families on it? No, that's the name of the vessel which was hit, which Kieran Andro is on, which Greta Thunberg is on. And that's the question that was posed there. Will the family boat, the family vessel, be able to continue? Quite extraordinary, isn't it? The Tunisian Coast Guard saying it's a cigarette. I don't think they're just making that up on the fly. I'm sure you'd have these kinds of conversations between different parts of the Tunisian state apparatus. Okay, when this ship docks in Tunisia, if something happens, what do we do? There was the recent experience in Malta, right? What do we do? And I suspect the modus operandi is lie, bullshit. Let's just get them out of our waters as quickly as possible, please. We do not want a diplomatic incident involving the Israelis, because as we saw with our first story, you don't want to get on the wrong side of what is effectively a gangster state, which has the blessing of the world's only military superpower, the United States. Quite clearly, this was not started by cigarettes. But while the immediate danger may have been low, fear is not unwarranted. In May this year, the Conscience, a ship traveling to Gaza organized by the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, was, as I mentioned a moment ago, struck by a drone in international waters off the Maltese coast, leaving the ship ablaze. That strike caused significant damage to the ship, breaching the hull and putting it at risk of sinking. The fire and the danger of foundering required the Maltese Coast Guard to send a rescue ship. And it later emerged that shortly before the drone attack on the Conscience, an Israeli Air Force plane had flown near Malta for several hours at low altitude. Israel has never claimed responsibility for the strike on the Conscience, but nor has it denied any accusations. In this case, the response has been a little different, with Israel calling accusations of its involvement, quote, an outright lie. Now, that bold denial doesn't mean that Israel wasn't behind the strike, even if it didn't direct it using its own equipment. At the time of the attack, the family was anchored 50 miles from the port of Sidi Bou Said, but only around 100 meters offshore. That means a local drone operator could easily have flown such a device over the family vessel, either from the shore or from a ship moored nearby. That would be before dropping the incendiary device. The Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, is known to operate networks of informants, spies, and operatives in foreign states. In June, following a wave of Israeli missile strikes on Iran, Israel released footage of what it said were Mossad-backed local agents assembling and launching missiles inside the country. And a Mossad operation last year in Lebanon that resulted in exploding pages, injuring at least 3,500 people and killing around 42, involved a network of operatives in Hungary. So this...
Chris Hedges doesn't have 2 cents that we haven't heard yet, then no one else does.
The idea that the Holocaust is a unique event in human history serves the interests of Zionists, who use it to paint Jews as eternal victims and justify the apartheid state of Israel as well as the genocide being carried out in Gaza.
Ooh, right off the bat, he's spitting heat. Fuck. Dude, the Holocaust made me an atheist, learning about it. And how naive I was to think that my disillusionment with the world would stop there.
Unique suffering in their eyes confers unique entitlements. The idea that the Holocaust is a unique event in human history serves the interests of Zionists, who use it to paint Jews as eternal victims and justify...
Right there. Right off the bat. They're like... No politic here. Why you no love Israel? What you say is anti-Semitic.
The apartheid state of Israel as well as the genocide being carried out in Gaza. Unique suffering in their eyes confers unique entitlement. But it also serves the interests of colonial powers who carried out their own genocides, ones they seek to obscure and deny, What was the annihilation of Native Americans by European settlers, the Armenians by Turks, the Indians and the Bengal famine by the British, or the Soviet-orchestrated famine in the Ukraine? What was the dropping of the atomic bombs?
Whoa, go back. Did you say the British? No, Chris. Did you just say the British?
On British, or the settlers, the Armenians by Turks, the Indians and the Bengal famine by the British.
The Bengal famine by the British? Oh yeah, Winston Churchill, that guy. That fucking war criminal. I forgot about him, dude. Of course. The guy who said, I don't understand why the Allies are squeamish about using poison gas. Dude wanted to use Zyklon B so bad.
Or the Soviet-orchestrated famine in the Ukraine. What was the dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Is Manifest Destiny any different from the Nazis' concept of Lebensraum?
Gee, Chris, you're gonna start making me wonder if the United States is an apartheid state.
Two were holocausts, fueled by the same dehumanization.
You might fuck around and have me think the United States is an apartheid state.
And bloodlust for mass extermination. Nearly all Holocaust scholars who see in any criticism of Israel a betrayal of the Holocaust.
The difference between the United States apartheid structure and Israel is that we live embedded with the people that we let just die among us. It's the people that, you know, will die in the street from the elements, usually, or drug-related overdoses. It's an apartheid extermination project against the poor. And the apartheid structure is not an iron wall, but a paywall. And one side of the wall is life, and the other side of the wall is death. That is capitalism. That is the apartheid structure that inevitably evolves from late-stage capitalism. The furthering chasm of the wealth divide.
Have refused to condemn the genocide. Not one of the institutions real extermination. Nearly all Holocaust scholars who see in any criticism of Israel a betrayal of the Holocaust have refused to condemn the genocide. Not one of the institutions dedicated to researching and commemorating the Holocaust have drawn the obvious historical parallels or decried the mass slaughter of Palestinians. These scholars and institutions are rendering the slogan, "Never Again," meaningless. They are misappropriating the Holocaust to perpetuate a false view of the world and human nature, a way not to explore the past, but manipulate the present. This decision to render the Holocaust an isolated event in human history, some grotesque aberration of human depravity, robs it of its meaning and its universal importance. The sacralization of the Holocaust allows Germany, which has been one of Israel's most important weapon suppliers since the state's inception, to absolve itself for its past atrocities through its backing of the Israeli settler colonial state. Germany uses this alliance with Israel to separate Nazism from the rest of German history, including the genocide carried out by German colonists against the Nama and Herero in German Southwest Africa, now Namibia. Such magic, the Israeli historian and genocide scholar Roz Siegel writes, legitimizes racism against Palestinians at the very moment that Israel perpetuates genocide against them. The idea of Holocaust uniqueness thus reproduces, rather than challenges, the exclusionary nationalism and settler colonialism that led to the Holocaust. Joining me to discuss the uses and misuses of the Holocaust and what it means for Holocaust studies is Professor Roz Siegel, an associate professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Stockton University, where he also...
You have let this dark lord of Zionism twist your mind until you've become the very thing you swore to destroy.
Directs the Master of Arts in Holocaust and Genocide Studies program. Professor Siegel, because of his condemnation of the genocide in Gaza, saw the offer to lead the Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies at the University of Minnesota revoked. Let's begin with the lessons of the Holocaust, because for Zionists, and if you go to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, the lesson of the Holocaust is the creation of a well-armed Jewish state. That's not the lesson for other writers of the Holocaust, such as Primo Levi, but maybe you can lay out what, in your mind, is the importance. And I think that, of course, both of us fear that the misuses of the Holocaust diminishes its importance that for all of us who need to learn about the capacity for human evil.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Chris, and for the invitation to speak with you today. Yeah, for me, the significance of the Holocaust. There's a number of things to say, but in a very basic way, I take the idea of never again, which is also in the title of the UN Genocide Convention, which is the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. So genocide prevention. And never again, I take that very seriously, and I take that very seriously not in the framework of Holocaust uniqueness, the exclusionary Israeli Zionist framework, never again for us, which, as you mentioned, really means a reproduction of the systems and processes of violence that led to the Holocaust, embodied in the State of Israel. But for me, the framework is a universal framework. So that is indeed about genocide prevention. So that's in a very basic way the significance of for me of thinking about the Holocaust, and certainly about thinking about the Holocaust, as I said, not as an exceptional event, right, but as something that is very much rooted in the broader context and really in the making of the late modern world. And in that sense, I think about it as rooted in the nation-state system and colonialism. I mean, there's a reason that the Holocaust happened when it happened, where it happened. That is in the middle of the 20th century, in the heart of Europe. And we can't understand Nazism. We can't understand the Holocaust. We really can't understand the phenomena of modern genocide without understanding the nation-state system, the exclusionary nation-state system, and colonialism, European expansion around the world, settler colonialism, and colonial genocides that accompanied this expansion for hundreds of years. And in that sense, and here I come to another way in which I see the significance of thinking about the Holocaust. After the defeat of Nazism, after the Holocaust, after the end of World War II, there was no coming to terms with the systems and processes, the nation state and colonialism that eventually culminated, not in any deterministic way, but eventually culminated in the Holocaust. Rather, the exclusionary nation state system and colonialism were actually reproduced after.
Project Paperclip. We were literally taking Nazis to work for us in order to compete with the Russians. It's just... evil was just transplanted, not defeated in World War II. The throne of evil was just vacant briefly, and now it's a shared throne among the very powers that overthrew Hitler. It's like evil prevailed in World War II. It's just wasn't the evil that it just wasn't the evil of the Nazis that prevailed. Fascism prevailed. Colonialism did. So definitely check this out. I'm going to leave this here so I can start editing and uploading. If you want to support the channel, like the video and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care, y'all. We'll see if this, I just reinstalled OBS, so we'll see if this works. So